Hi, everyone. Good morning if you're in the US. Good afternoon if you're in the UK. Good whatever if you're watching the recorded version. We will actually start in 2 minutes, just giving time for people to join. But before we start, I'm just going to share a little poll if I can. Here I am. So you should see a little poll. There's 2 questions. You should see that on your screen, including you, Scott. And just to get, before we start, a little bit of the atmosphere in terms of whether you understand, whether you're excited by what AI and technology can bring to your college or to your institution, but also whether, and that's the second question, whether you feel any challenges or dangers. So that's gonna set the tone for Scott and Rich. So let's give it 60 more seconds, and for time also for more people to join. We've got about 25 votes so far. Attendees are pouring in, and I will start in 30 seconds. Okay, I'm going to end the poll and share the results with you. So what do we see here? We see that the level of excitement on question 1 is quite high, with the vast majority of ratings. So we have like almost 60% of rating 8 and above in terms of the benefits and the excitement, which is good. And then when it comes to the dangers, we've got 10 out of 10, but the bulk of it is around the 5 to 8 mark. So there is also a big concern on that. So that's quite interesting, because if it was a 1 to 3 on both questions, it would be a very boring panel. But people are both excited and slightly cautious and fearful. So I will stop sharing that. And wanted to welcome you again. So I'm Chris Mallet. I'm the co-founder and CEO of Bodyswaps. And I'm joined today, for the moment, just by Scott from Basingstoke College of Technology. And I will soon hopefully be joined, look at this, right on time, by Richard Fullylove from Coleg. I hope I'm pronouncing this right. I tried many times. And both Richard and Scott are pioneers. And I know the word pioneer, hi Richard, is bandied around a lot and often sounds exaggerated, but we had chats, I read their presentation, and what they're going to talk about today is very both practical and mind-blowing. So I'm really looking forward to it. As for Bodyswaps, I'll give you 2 sentences, and then we won't talk about Bodyswaps until the very end. So for those who don't know us, we are essentially a flight simulator for soft skills. So we use virtual reality and artificial intelligence to allow students to practice difficult conversations in a safe simulated space. So that's it for Bodyswaps. I wanted to, before we move on, to set the scene a little bit. So I know about 50% of you on the webinar today are actually from the US. And so don't hesitate, by the way, to use the chat to say hello to one another. But in the UK, there's close to 3 million further education students. And when we look at the title of this webinar, how to improve student outcomes, it's quite easy to think about this as a game of big numbers, right? A big employability game. How do we feed 50,000 young people to that industry, 5,000 young people to that region, and to essentially match the needs of, the needs of the workforce with the students we have. Jobs are fulfilled, less unemployment, the economy is happy, and that's it. And certainly that's part of the game, and new technology can help with that. But I want to look at this in another way, which is how new technology can help every student. And because those 3 million students are distinct individuals with distinct needs and potential. And so the question becomes, how can we use VR and AI and other immersive edtech to fulfill the potential of not all students, but every student? So that's hopefully what we're going to talk about today. And so at Bodyswaps, we work with over 50 colleges in the UK now. We've had many, many conversations, many, many visits. And there's at least 3 areas that we found FE colleges were not originally set up for, where they can have an impact now. The first one has to do with the fact that the student body is increasingly diverse. We're talking about socioeconomic diversity, language, age, neurodiversity, ability, learning style. And maybe the traditional model, the traditional classroom model, is struggling to cope with that new challenge. Potentially AI and immersive tech can bring an answer. The second area is mental well-being, mental health. You can blame the social media, COVID, the parents, the culture, but the very fact is that students are struggling today with their mental health, and there's not a lot of support available. And FE has a role here to support the mental health of their students. And the last area has to do with the fact that getting an education is more than just getting the technical, the vocational skills that will get you a job. It is the responsibility, and the Ofsted acknowledges that and pushes that. It's the responsibility of the institutions to prepare students for the real world in the broader sense of the term, which includes skills beyond the technical, right? So all those work readiness skills that will help you be a good coworker, a good partner, a good citizen, even a good friend. And so how do you teach those non-technical skills in a new way is probably the third area. So there's a bias into those areas. I know Scott and Rich are going to talk about so much more, but I just wanted to set the scene. And we're going to start today with Rich. So Rich, what I'll do is I'm going to read your bio, and whenever you're ready, you can share your screen. And as always, it will be an exercise in concision. So if you can keep it to 8-10 minutes, that would be brilliant. So
fantastic.
Rich serves as the head of technology enhanced learning at Coleg Cymoedd, leading a multifaceted team of technology specialists, teaching practitioners, and digital well-being experts. You obviously have a passion for education, a creative background, and you've been working for over 30 years to really transform teaching and learning through the adoption specifically of new technologies. In 2021, your work on designing and developing programs to enhance digital capability has been highlighted as an example in the best practice in the UK education sector within the Microsoft Digital Capabilities for Cloud-First, Mobile-First Education Guide. You also contributed importantly to the Welsh Government's Digital 2030 Strategic Framework for the post-16 digital learning in Wales, and another report in terms of standards for post-16 education in Wales. So both passionate and very practical, which is fantastic. Rich, the floor is yours if you want to share your screen.
Oh, that's fantastic. Thanks, Christophe. Let's just get this going for you there. Okay, is that coming through? You can see the slides there. So
all good, yeah. Beautiful.
AI, fantastic. Okay, so just like to say that, thanks for that warm welcome, and warm welcome to everyone on today's webinar. Coleg Cymoedd, we really are dedicated to transforming education and offering the very best learning experiences by integrating these cutting-edge technologies, more so now, especially like AI and VR. And we're creating immersive and supportive experiences that we think are shaping the future of learning, especially around sort of personalized learning and tailoring courses to each student's needs and preferences through a cohesive AI roadmap and some quite exciting external partnerships, increasing student engagement and motivation by making learning inspiring and realistic with the adoption of really media-rich immersive experiences, but more importantly as well, developing the learner's soft skills alongside their practical and employability skills. So how we're doing that is looking really as far ahead as 2030, which is the sort of national call to action within Wales currently, particularly around our strategic digital learning plan and 4 clear aims within that. So firstly, we're sort of addressing the digital capability and confidence of staff, and we have been since 2019. We recognise this is important for all staff to be digitally confident and capable. And that's been through the development of a 6-day programme, framework, a community of digital advocates, all designed and built around 6 key transferable digital skills. Secondly, and more importantly, is this aspect of digital learning. So as digital education takes us beyond transactional concerns with ease of access to materials and the use of digital tips and tricks, we're seeking to develop a common language for learning, establish new markers of quality and observation, and ensuring that the integration of digital learning and activities are impactful and meaningful, both in the classroom and online. That, needless to say, goes hand in hand with digital innovation and recognising the impact of societal changes and shifting workplace dynamics on education. The college is embracing evolving educational trends to provide these flexible, accessible and personalised learning opportunities through AI and VR that align with the changing aspirations of our learners and employer expectations. And a really important part of the piece that you alluded to earlier there is around digital well-being, safety, knowledge, inclusivity, infrastructure, and for my part, spaces. So we're strategically utilising technology to enhance learner outcomes, particularly around operational efficiencies, streamlining operations like everyone else, but also having a focus on fostering a safe, secure, accessible digital environment that improves learning, well-being, and innovation. So moving on to some of the approaches that we've tried to develop across the organisation in terms of these institutional goals. I'm going to talk about 4 key things. Firstly, having an open mind. So sounds obvious and simple, but rather than implementing a set of fixed guidelines and standards in terms of solutions, we maintain an open mindset when looking at new technologies, continually researching, experimenting, and taking the time to explore the ways that they could benefit the learners and transform teaching, more importantly, beyond current practices, whilst spending a great deal of time encouraging teaching staff to look at new approaches to delivering their courses and curriculum, rather than directly replacing like for like with existing lessons and activities. Key for us as well was looking beyond the sector. When we began our journey and the adoption of immersive technologies, we recognised that many of the great apps and innovations on the market weren't created by the sector, nor did we have the in-house speciality, content expertise, or budget, or indeed time to build these ourselves. So instead, we've proactively sourced apps and resources directly from a host of commercial AI and VR companies from the UK, Greece, France, Italy, Sweden, and as far afield as Australia. And I got to say, this has yielded more immediate benefits for the learners, and I guess more importantly, a quicker return on investment for the college. It's also given us the opportunity in the last 2 years to gain knowledge, give us the time to start building our own solutions with some key companies and platforms focused on digital twins, pre-visualization, interactive micro simulations, and co-piloted learning through the adoption of AI. Key to that, and I guess if we were talking about VR, was having that a cohesive, centralized hardware ecosystem. So when it came to selecting the technology we were going to use, we particularly focused on commercial sources and technologies, and we kind of hang our hat there in terms of the HTC Vive ecosystem, which has proven a great benefit for us. It also gave us access to a whole host of app stores from which we could try thousands of free and affordable apps and games, especially useful for engaging with our creative game design courses and the development of their curriculum with the likes of Gravity Sketch, Google Tilt Brush, and things like Cine Tracer. And lastly, I'd just like to say the importance really of building relationships. So one of the key approaches was building partnerships with vendors and manufacturers, not just buying solutions as a customer, but asking about educational opportunities and being open to sharing our experiences with others in the sector. The added value of taking the time to really engage with this has been game-changing, often giving us access to try new apps or hardware before the general release, and the opportunity to contribute to the development of new apps or licensed proposals within the educational sector. Moving swiftly on, just some ideas around implementation. So hopefully it'll cover some questions, but really just to sort of give you an idea of some of the practical operational things that we did. So firstly, 2 years ago, we established a dedicated team of teaching practitioners or digital champions who were there to help colleagues with a wide range of technology issues and how they integrated that into their practice. But they also drove some key projects for us, particularly around the adoption of Bodyswaps within our universal learning provision and within some of our key curriculum areas. They operated a one-to-one support service for staff, a call centre, if you like, where staff could make a quick 30-minute call to get some support and guidance. We looked at a creative day. So in terms of developing staff capability, we had a 5-day programme. One of those days was around giving staff the opportunity to have a bit of hands-on experience, to try these resources and to try the great apps and services that we had access to. Cross-college tech days and roadshows, a whole series of these based on each campus, again, letting staff to come and try the technology, but also to engage in some conversations with us around its use and adoption, but then following up those leads with the offer of support, training, and the equipment that they could take into the classroom. And then some hands-on technology sessions during inset days. So similar in format to the workshops and roadshows, but what we then did was set about more targetable offering with bookable sessions around key apps and tools, be that a session on Bodyswaps and how we could support key aspects of learning development around interview skills and public speaking, or things like Immersive Factory for health and safety training within the School of Curriculum, or the impact and benefits of AI on teaching and learning for staff. Last few, we looked at things like peer learning, so an SLT initiative, or strategic leadership team initiative, giving staff the time, and that's the important part, giving them the time and opportunity during the academic year to experiment with key apps and platforms, such as Bodyswaps within the School of Care, Public Services and Sport. We built programs, so we worked with heads of schools and department, designing projects, providing the apps and hardware that their staff could then integrate directly into curriculum. So for example, VR in terms of situational awareness training for our football academies, or immersive medical grade anatomy and physiology simulations for healthcare and A-level sciences. We focused on more than teaching and learning. So a key thing that I'm going to be doing very shortly, engaging the likes of senior managers and our people and culture department with apps such as Bodyswaps and the positive impact that's going to have on our anti-racism training program for staff. So this is going to enable all managers at the college to run departmental anti-racism workshops, a key directive in Wales at the moment with the Welsh Government, utilising the Let's Talk About Race micro-navigations module, hands-on VR simulated training for staff during our next inset day, and then this approach is going to be taken further forward with learners. Can't cover this enough, really, is about making this technology as accessible as possible. So ensuring teaching staff and learners can access the technology and apps when they need to, in as many places as possible. Be that a box of headsets that was taken into the classroom, loaning the technology to the schools and curriculum areas, or having, as you can see in the background there, within one of our learning centres or our libraries in the college, a space and the staff within the centre who could support teachers and students to explore the world of immersive learning and supporting them there. And then lastly, the idea of engaging with stakeholders, directly involving academic managers and teaching staff at the college in the latest developments, such as a Welsh Government supported AI bilingual teaching and learning co-pilot, which we're developing currently. Has all of this really enhanced learning? Have we had engagement from staff and students? Well, I'd just like to leave you with some of the sort of key feedback, how staff have seen the benefit of this, how it's changing their perception and use of technology, how it's allowing them to be immersed in those different worlds, how they're enjoying it. how simple it is to use, how they are learning these skills for employability, such as public speaking, how they're finding the immersion realistic, and how it's helping them to engage in key and particular aspects of the curriculum. There you go.
Brilliant. Thanks a lot, Richard. There's a lot to cover.
Sorry, probably threw a lot in there and spoke about 1,000,000 miles an hour. We're just trying to cover some really practical operations.
I had read your presentation before, so I knew it already, and still it was very fast because there's so much that you covered, so many like initiatives that you did, different initiatives. So by all means, on the chat, use the Q&A. We can go into a little bit more details about that in 10 minutes. And Rich, obviously, people can find you on LinkedIn if they want to ask some more questions about some of those. Moving on for the next 10 minutes to Scott, and then we'll have more of a chat. So awkward bio reading number 2, starting now. Scott serves as the head of teaching, learning, and digital at Basingstoke College of Technology. He leads a team primarily composed of former students turned staff members, which is quite interesting. It's something I've seen here in the US yesterday, University in Washington. And the team specializes is enriching educational practices with the help of digital. That team has received a number of accolades, including the TES FE Award for Outstanding Use of Technology in 2018, as well as the Wellbeing at Work Award, the Hampshire Inspire Awards 2023. And I think well-being and how to improve that is maybe a topic we'll cover later. In addition to overseeing education and training courses, Scott also manages the college's learning coaches, focusing on observation-based staff development, targeted CPD, continuous professional developments for those Americans on the chat, and empathetic coaching. You're certified as a Google for Education champion, and you are a National Teaching Awards Silver winner, and you serve as a national advisor for EdTech UK. So a lot of things, and it's not over yet. Your team has empowered over 100 educational institutions through the Department for Education's EdTech Demonstrator program. So talking really about spreading the word on the technology. And finally, you're an active member of AI in Education, a cross-sector initiative announced in May 2023, aimed at exploring the potential of AI in education. And on that note, the floor is yours.
Thank you, Chris. Richard, your slides were great, mate. It was so inspiring. Thank you. I want to talk to you about what we've done at our college. We're based in North Hampshire, just near London, in England, in a general further education college. And we're a medium-sized college, about 5,000 learners. And it's my job to look after our teachers and observe them, coach them, and develop them. And the team of students we've got at the college, they've grown up to be apprentices and then full-time members of staff. It's something we pride ourselves on. Even right now, I've got Max down the corridor as one of our student digital leaders who might one day be one of these members of our team. We nurture and grow that talent at the college to help, and they grow into hopefully people like Amara who can train and coach and deliver sessions for all staff and students. Our approach and strategy is underpinned by this strategy and philosophy, I suppose, a better way of putting it, from Gerd Leonhard, a futurist who says, in an age of abundance of technology, the human skills become more valuable than ever. What we call soft skills, he calls core skills, that of compassion, originality, responsibility, and empathy. These skills become more valuable than ever. To that end, we utilize design thinking principles to think from the user perspective. In classrooms, we sit with the students, we work with the teachers to think from their view and perspective as to how we can use technology mindfully, deliberately, and intentionally to enhance outcomes and well-being, for that matter. But health and safety, self and safety, we've also got one of these. Got to fill in this health and safety form to make sure that students and staff consent to using technologies that they are using, whether it be AI or VR. This is something I really recommend. A good poster to go over pragmatically what to expect in VR, which your first time can be a bit unsettling, can't it? And just to have that GDPR sort of thorough check, as it were, and medical check as well on learners before they engage in VR. The first thing we ever did was in 2016. I don't know if you've ever seen this, Rich, but this is something that caught my attention about the potential empathy machine capabilities of VR using a 360 video. This video generated and scripted and co-directed with a group of learners with autism was built to actually help you think from the perspective of a learner with Asperger's syndrome at a party, and the sensory overload, and to help you empathize from the perspective of this individual. It's an incredibly beautiful piece of storytelling and quite an emotive piece of work as well. And our health and social care learners in 2016 engaged with it on their devices and wrote care plans for the learner afterwards. And that gave us an inkling as to the impact and power, because the emotional responses that these learners gave us of the care plan they would create for this learner were so visceral and primal and all too human. And they were talking about what they would do to support this person, having had a shared experience of sorts with them. So we invested in some tech and always collaborated with our teachers as to how technology could help the outcomes of their courses. We're a vocational college, so we're hands-on, preparing people for the workplace. So whether it be our automotive guys learning how to use wrenches and use the tools on motorsport and automotive simulations before they get hands-on with the actual resources themselves, or electrical engineers doing tests against the clock before they actually go into their endpoint assessment, or whether it be English learners developing their vocabulary by having immersive experiences to develop their vocabulary. We started to see gains and wins, but always aligned with the pedagogy and what the outcomes were. Couldn't be crowbarred in as something whizzy and sexy just to get some marketing attention. It had to be driven by learning. We found, as I'm sure you guys have found as well, in the last few years, a need to develop the social skills of our learners being a real primary concern. This is where we stumbled across Bodyswaps, and we have many learners here at the college who learn differently. People who've been somewhat burnt by traditional education systems as well, and we help them with interview simulation skills, with practicing talking and presenting using VR, and using the Bodyswaps app actually to refine and practice their social skills in a safe sandbox environment before they did it in real life. And the gains we saw were quite something. The confidence levels growing from learners who struggle with interpersonal communication, with learners who really need support and scaffolding, as it were, before they have that first interview or that first difficult conversation, preparing them for actual real life job interviews and practice interviews. We saw these fascinating wins. Again, VR is that empathy machine. Using it for our vocational areas as well to practice those, as Chris so wonderfully put it, like Bodyswaps is like a flight simulator for soft skills. Well, VR can be used as a way to actually train any number of different skills and simulate different skills. So construction, whether it be traffic marshalling, whether it be organising resources in the yard, we saw these interesting gains. And we've started to experiment with other tools as well, whether it be emotion analysis using tools from our partner company Make Real, using AI insights and the webcam and the software that Make Real have produced to actually get emotional analysis for our learners so they can get feedback from AI before they have those in-person communications. Many of our learners going into the workplace is quite useful. But generative AI is something I want to move on to quickly and just end this short presentation talking about. We're all in generative AI in relation to planning and resource creation. In our scheme of work document, which is our planning document for the year, we put this front and center. Now, use Google Bard, use Teachermatic, telling them so they didn't feel naughty, didn't feel like getting in trouble. I even gave them the prompts, said, hey, this will write a good lesson plan for you. It will align with our institutional objectives. It will use Bloom's taxonomy. It will structure it in a way that includes safeguarding and all the other things we need to include. It's led to the best planning we've ever had, is the truth, in the 15 years that I've been here. And it's freed up time for our teachers to focus on the creative human aspects of their job and they value so much. We've given prompts to all of our staff so they can take the text prompts and use it in Google Bard, which is completely free for our staff to use, and have been generating how-to guides, step-by-step instructions, exemplars, waggles, what a good one looks like, and scaffolds, handouts, resources for their students. Our students have started to use AI in really interesting ways as well. In ESOL courses, English speakers of other languages, we've been helping them with prompt engineering to develop their English skills, putting in prompts to create artworks like this. Some students, like Camilla, went even further and generated AI-generated artworks and 360 environments using a symphony of different AI tools. Here, Camilla, an ESOL learner, used her AI skills to create an interactive virtual Bible study telling the story of Genesis, an immersive experience where she brought to life all the characters from the story of Genesis, and her church engaged in it and used it to help Bible study. Students clicking on characters to bring them to life and hear Adam and Eve tell their tale, as it were. It was magnificent. Students talking to theorists they're studying, like Lev Vygotsky here, using ChatGPT and Google Bard. They can actually interrogate and ask questions, and then ask the theorist to back up his thoughts using Harvard referencing, of course. We've seen our students start to engage with the material using generative AI in really interesting ways. This happened in the last few weeks or so. We're starting to see how students can use this well because they're using it. We know this. Got to show them how to use it well. One last example is those with learning needs in particular, and how we can use certain prompts to adapt and relate to interests of learners. This engineering learner wasn't really getting on with one of the lessons. The mathematics were a little bit too difficult to grasp, but using Google Bard and a prompt, it could be adapted and related to something he was into, which was the Dodge 2015. He loved his motor cars, this chap. Helped him to understand and to connect and personalize the learning. And that all comes back from using the empathy map in the bottom right-hand corner, thinking from the user perspective. It was wonderful watching it connect for him. But at the heart of all of this and our use of AI is this clear, singular intention, freeing up teacher time to focus on that which matters most, that which cannot be automated. And we're seeing some wins, we're seeing some gains in terms of teacher time being saved for that which matters most. Thank you.
Well, that was brilliant. If I could find a clapping emoji on my on my Zoom, I would do it, but I'm not that good with technology apparently. It was fascinating, and thanks a lot, both Rich and Scott. I could have listened to you for hours. There's quite a few questions that I have, but I want to go straight to the heart of one topic, which relates to both of our presentation. Rich, one of the first things you said was we're not looking at technology to replace teaching one-for-one. But obviously, you serve as the head of technology enhanced learning. Scott, you're head of teaching, learning, and digital. So you evolve in a very specific sphere. What's been the relationship with educators in terms of buy-in? And also, how do you see their role evolving in the future, in a post AI, post VR world? Rich, maybe you want to go first?
Okay. So in terms of buy-in, that's gone hand in hand with the way that we've managed expectation. And what I was saying there in terms of replacing, probably see this a lot across the sector, whereby they'll look for something specifically to replace a certain PowerPoint or a certain lesson or a certain unit. But what we're trying to engage staff with is thinking differently. Is rather than using that labeled PowerPoint to teach anatomy and physiology, is using the immersive classroom within something like 3D Organon, whereby students on different campuses can all engage in that same activity in a collaborative way. So delivering similar topics as per pedagogy and curriculum, obviously, but in new and emerging ways and engaging with them in that. A couple of key things. I mean, fantastic presentation there from Scott, and we've probably not gone as far into the practical guidance for staff with AI, but as I was coming towards the end of my presentation there, is engaging the staff as stakeholders, so making them a valued part of that process. So if I were to highlight what we're doing this year is that sort of developing a teaching and learning co-pilot, or that sort of smart assistant for learners in 2 specific schools currently, is having staff engage from the get-go, getting their opinions, gauging what they feel about AI, having those conversations with them, engaging their feelings again, ensuring that we have the buy-in for them and making them part of that process. I think to just, probably over the 3 decades, having looked at so many LMS platforms and student tracking platforms, quite often the sticking point is where staff are not engaged in that process, where they feel that it's forced upon them. But obviously, their valued input as well into that. They are at the end of the day experts in terms of their curriculum and their delivery. And what we're trying to do is really enhance that. And as Scott was saying there, that empathy for the learner and focusing on learning. A lot of what's going on at the moment is probably focusing on teaching. We're trying to save, particularly in Wales, staff time and teachers' time. But what about learning? What could those 5 hours a week? How could that engage more with the learning experience and getting staff to think about it in that context, not what they have to deliver, but what the learners are going to learn, which I know sounds painfully obvious, but having looked at that in terms of the development of hybrid learning with a specific 5-day program that we developed, that was a real light bulb moment for staff, where they realized they were designing for teaching rather than designing for learning.
Great. What's your view on that, Scott, in terms of the changing role of the educator?
Changing role of the educator, Chris. I think the role of an educator now is to be a confident conductor. I think that's how I keep thinking of it. And a facilitator. The sage on the stage is done. I observe teaching practice and give feedback, and the best, most vibrant sessions are those project-based, inquiry-based, curious, full of wonder sessions that are aligned with industry, aligned with discovery, and the teacher, you can barely spot them at times. They are part of the team, going alongside them. It's no longer watching some guy do a dusty old PowerPoint, and if we do see that, we challenge it. So I think the role of the educator now is to become this, to borrow Richard's phrase, that a co-pilot, as it were, just alongside our students even as well, and to be curious and learn alongside them. And the best thing we ever did here was trying to exercise humility in terms of going to our students, right, well, how do you guys learn? What do you want to, how do you engage, and what works best for you? And by doing that, it opened up all these different ways of thinking. It's all well and good me, a 41-year-old bloke of particular biases, thinking what I think, but ultimately, until I sit and empathize from the user perspective, different industries, different people, different learning needs, it's not going to have as much impact as I would like. And I'm continually reminded of that fact, continually bring myself back to that user perspective. Get outside of my own cognitive biases is so important. And I think it's fun as well, when you're working in a team alongside your class, or to actually find new ways of learning. It's exciting. This is the most exciting time in the history of education. I'll keep saying it to the point where it sounds overly sincere and earnest, but I mean it. And stages like this are really important to say it on clearly, but I mean it. If we do this right, if we bottle this lightning the right way, like that personalized learning experience for that engineering learner, like that for and then scale that up for every learner, that's worth fighting for, right?
So I think we're all there in terms of the promise of the technology and the end goal, which is a beautiful one. But I have a question in a Q&A which really resonates with what I hear. The question is, in our university, we've been exploring the use of VR as an instructional resource for faculty members. However, we've encountered a challenge with low uptake rates. Can you share any strategies or tips to enhance adoption amongst the faculty? And I think just to add from what I've heard often is Faculty are very, very busy, very overworked. Depending if it's FE or universities, they might be incentivized on research, not on instructional education. And colleges, they just might be too busy. How do you sell that vision to educators, and how do you actually practically make it happen? Rich, I know you had a slide with a few bullet points that answered that. If you want to maybe.
Yeah, I think it's taking a multifaceted approach. You know, you can't emphasize the fact that time is a valuable commodity, and if staff are going to commit the time to learning something, it's got to be impactful and it's got to be meaningful. So, yeah, giving them the opportunity to try that technology, alleviating their fears, confidence as well. You know, I think a lot of educators over the years would say, you know, they haven't got the confidence to use those technologies within that environment. They don't want to look foolish. They don't want things to go wrong. But it's that experimentation. You know, when Scott was saying there, it's sometimes it's even gamifying that curriculum or that experience, you know, pitching this at the level of the learner that the staff can also benefit from. So to give you an example there, perhaps within construction, where we were looking at hazard spotting, you know, to turn that into, you know, there's 15 hazards, you've got 2 minutes to find them. For the students, that becomes a gamified experience. But the value of that learning then, to take that into that discussion, or I don't want to say the dry part of that conversation, but then the legislation around health and safety. So it's engaging with the staff there. The time for them to do that, the opportunities, the training and support, which I know is tricky. I mean, I guess we've been lucky in a way that we've brought together our learning centres and library services, where we have a space or an opportunity for staff to go and find more, you know, and again, within their own time. You know, they have the 5 minutes to try these things. You know, you're not always going to solve the world's problems. At the end of the year, in a 2-hour session during a staff training day, this has to be a continual process, and providing continual opportunities for staff to engage with those technologies, I think is the way to get buy-in.
So Richard, on that, so it's so interesting you say that. We found the best way to make things land and connect is to make it undeniable in relation to that impact, like you mentioned. So counselling, they're doing a difficult conversations module. So therefore, the Bodyswaps modules are timely and seen as vital, as guardrails and practice wheels, as it were, before they do that assessment. The teacher sees it as a good use of time, because it's a teaching and learning tool. It's aligned with their objectives. Yeah. The students see the value of it. And also we go to their classroom as well. We found that even though we've got lovely spaces here, students don't want to, they're tribal. We're all tribal. We like to stay in our little halls and areas. We put it in the backpack and go up to them and just pop it up in their classroom. And by doing that, we've got the best engagement we've found. Because it's in their classroom, in their space, and they feel more comfortable. Also, it's quite vulnerable, right? Putting on a headset in a strange space. So that's something that we realise is no small thing. So just making sure that it's on their turf, as it were, or in their spaces, and aligned with their outcomes and objectives, so they see it as this win rather than this nice to have.
Yeah, definitely that, isn't it? It's as you say, aligning it to their outcomes and needs, or indeed reflecting the industry that they're preparing the learners to go into. You know, again, using construction as an example, I know some major construction been going on in Wales recently in the education sector, and companies, big construction companies such as Kia, are now using VR as part of their health and safety on-site training. So what we're saying to these educators is, well, this is what's happening in the world of work. Here's the same app. You can use it with your students. You know, the example of the football academies, you know, where our students now are experiencing the same as top flight footballers in terms of their recovery, their statistical analysis.
Yeah, I want to see that, mate. I want to use that here. Yeah. You know? That's so good. Afterwards, I'm going to talk to you about that. That looks so good, mate. Yeah. We've got a National Health Service blood testing here as well. We're using at the moment, because we're training people to work in the NHS, National Health Service, if you're outside the UK. And the fact that we can say, that's being used in industry, that's being used by people in the role, that is it's an ace card in any conversation with any potential naysayer. You know, we're preparing you for what's next. You know, and that's crucial. And I think justifying it again in terms of resource as well, and we're saving enormous amounts of hours in terms of the use of AI tools and VR tools that are either simulating experiences or self-marking formative checks on learning. And our staff, this is the biggest thing for us. They come into us and saying, well, I've got more time for coaching. I've got more time for those knee-to-knee, human conversations. And our strategy is that, free up more time. And I'm more convinced than ever that's what we need to be focused on.
So I'm gonna, because that's my role, gonna play the not the devil's advocate, but on the benefit side, just to sum it up, we're saving staff a lot of time, meaning they can deliver high value teaching and relationship with students. It helps with assessment, it helps with lesson planning. The content is more engaging and memorable, and the literacy in VR and AI in and of itself, outside of the content, is valuable in the world of work. So that's why I think when I did a poll at the beginning, 45 minutes ago, most people were between kind of like 8 and 10. I know I forgot to share results, but most people were between 8 and 10 in terms of their level of understanding and excitement around AI and immersive learning. But the average on the second question, which was about the dangers and the challenges, was also quite high, maybe around 6 or 7. So what's been the biggest challenge for you so far, and how do you overcome that challenge, whether it's ethics or change management or reluctance? Can you share any very practical insight on moving the ball forward?
Something we've got that we've used for some time, and it continues to be of value, is a 3-tick process. So I'm quite excitable, because maybe I might have communicated in this. I get a bit carried away when I see interesting things to help us learn. So I'll give things a tick. So I want to give things a go, right? Teaching and learning gives it a tick done. Second tick is IT systems. Is it compatible with the systems? And if IT systems tick it, okay, we're cooking. Might get the third tick. Third tick, GDPR. And often things I like fall foul of that straight away. So that 3-tick process, there's 3 departments who have to all, say that this is good to go before it moves forward. That is something tangible and simple in a Google form, whatever it might be, to actually ensure you've done your due diligence as much as you possibly ever can. How about yourself, Richard?
Do you know what? Funny enough, we've got 3 things, but I guess that's because within technology enhanced learning and under the current directorship, that also includes IT. So any decisions we're trying to make, obviously, we're talking about, MFA, authentication, will it work? Can we open that up? What's the licensing? Those issues. My 2 colleagues I work very closely with. One is the, excited possibility, driving that forward. The other, looking at the practical adoption. And dare I say, there's me coming along behind as that sort of alternate view, what will be the issues? What do we need to inform staff about? Not just the GDPR, and the copyright of putting all their materials or anyone else's materials into an open AI model to gain that knowledge, but, protecting the learners, anonymizing data. What advice and guidance are we going to give? Are we going to allow all staff to use any flavor of open AI currently? Or are we, as an institution, going to look at what we can provide for all staff and all students that isn't paywalled, that they can access, that has equity and a level playing field in terms of engagement and accessibility? We're probably at the point where we're looking at, or we are certainly in terms of AI strategy and policy. We've looked at enhanced decision making last year. We've looked at how it would improve staff workload, smart assessment in terms of recruitment, and sort of automating repetitive tasks around recruitment and enrollment. We've employed new posts, so a new digital learning and innovation manager. I work closely as one of those 3 heads that we sort of look at that. But yeah, I think we're getting to that stage now of the uncomfortable decision of, what do we turn off and what do we block? What do we allow people to have access to that, ensures that service and access is equitable for all, really.
Great. And I'm conscious that we're quickly running out of time. And even though this I would happily continue for a while, but maybe one last question. Zooming back in on the learner, I think we talked a lot about the educator and the time saved and the fact that it should be seen as a benefit and an improvement from the individual perspective on the educator on what they're going to be doing day to day. Now, from the learner perspective, and bringing back to the table what we said at the beginning on diversity of learners, mental health, and the need for human skills or core skills. Could you try to depict a day at your college from a learner's perspective in, I don't know, 5 years? Who wants to? It's not easy.
Oh,
And I know
Richard.
crystal ball gazing is always dangerous.
Go on.
But
Okay.
bring it to life.
I'll start. I'll start on the other side of that and say at the moment nothing will have changed. You know, how we engage with the learners, yes, we'll be using, we'll be adopting technology. I think the real crux of the matter is in terms of awarding bodies, how we measure knowledge and skills, how we award qualifications, how we test knowledge. And until that changes, what we're doing at the front in terms of delivering knowledge and supporting the learner is fantastic. But, you know, to coin a phrase of a colleague, you know, to get into a Russell Group university, I could still do that with a pen in a written exam. So a lot of things need to change there. But what I'd like to see, you know, is every stage of that learner's path or journey supported through the use of AI, data and analytics, plotting a successful path for them. You know, helping them in terms of their timekeeping, their extra study skills, the support that's needed, you know, not saying everything is automated because it won't be. You know, they're still going to have those rich dialogue and conversations with tutors, with support staff, but certainly in terms of their needs, the systems, platforms and services will be there to support their true personalized learning journey for their successful career path. And we'll have possibly the data or the analysis to help them to achieve that path, to achieve the success that they want.
That's a great answer. That's really good. I think assessment's about to change forever. I think it is happening. So. I think we're going to see the rise of the witness statement, the rise of the vlog, the podcast, the simulation, the witness statement. I think we're going to see that because AI is about to become entangled and enmeshed in society in a way that I don't think that we are fully at peace with yet. I think our central nervous systems are dosed with AIs every day already. In subtle ways, but what we saw on, was it November 30th, 2022 with ChatGPT was this expediting of the process, this exponential on an exponential. And I think we need to take responsibility as educators to show how we can use this with intention, deliberately, because this is no longer, we can't wait. What I'm trying to say, we can't wait for guidance from governments and powers that be, although in Wales, the leadership is, you know, commendable and worthy of note. But in other countries, there's not as much guidance as we would like in terms of how we approach these things. But we as educators, it's our responsibility to try our best to wrestle with this and to have a clear, deliberate approach as to how we use AI to enhance and personalize learning so it looks the way that Richard just outlined. So I think classrooms are going to become very practical, hands-on, live events, I think is going to be a byproduct of this strange time in history that we find ourselves in with the rise of AI.
Great, fantastic. Thanks both for sharing that. What I take away from it is it's important to put the educators and the learners at the center of all of those initiatives, taking into account who they are and their diversity, and then from the bottom up, very intentionally make things change where they also need to change, which is at the very top. So, you know, may the gods of the Department for Education hear you. I'm gonna take literally like three minutes to just conclude this with it's a bit of a shameless plug for Bodyswaps because I can. But I just wanted to say it's already that looking at the learners, some of those human skills, work readiness skills, are hard to teach, and because it's the mission of an FE college to really prepare the learners to face the real world, which is not an easy one. We came up with a series of simulations, which we call the Work Ready course, which is aimed to help. It's not replacing any learning. It's, again, as per what you both said, a tool to help the educators deliver this practical, safe experience on some of those skills that they will need to demonstrate in the real world to be successful, but also in their studies, right? Working in teams, showing resilience, communicating professionally, negotiating and managing conflict, whether it's a conflict with your friend, your family, or at work, and then obviously the more obvious job interview and speaking to an audience, because we all will. So the idea behind that course, the Work Ready course, was to map the modules against the Ofsted framework. So for those not familiar with it, the Ofsted is a non-ministerial but governmental entity that assesses post-secondary education, and they have a framework. So in the US, you would have, I guess, state-based variety of accreditation body, but they have 4 pillars, and one of the pillars is personal development, and that has to do with building a more rounded individual when they leave, and transforming them from teenagers to adults, really, which is a big ask. And so it's mapping the modules against some of those development areas, right? Developing confident and resilient, developing communication skills, guiding around career, preparing for employment, helping people become responsible, respectful, and active as citizens. And yeah, I think overall, it goes back to the sentence I had at the beginning, which is seeing the VR AI revolution as a potential to really fulfill the potential of every individual. And based on what you said, under the umbrella of individual, I would put the educators as well as the learners. And I think there's potential for the educators to also become the best version that they can. There was plenty of questions in the Q&A that we did not have time to answer. I'm very sorry for that. There's our email here, but you can email me directly, chris@bodyswaps.co, if it's any questions regarding Bodyswaps. Scott and Richard, putting you on the spot here, but if you want to share your emails on the chat. I know some people have quite precise questions on the setup that you and guidelines. Molly was supposed to present with me on all the promotional material, and she couldn't, which turned this into a manual, which is a shame, especially a manual of white men. So apologies for that. It won't happen again. It wasn't intentional. I just want to make sure that we mention the fact that this is not how things should work. And finally, if you want to try the Work Ready course or anything about Bodyswaps, there's a QR code here which you can scan, and this will give you access to a trial. And last words for you, Scott and Richard. What is your one piece of advice? If people have to remember one thing from this entire hour, what's your one piece of advice for ambitious educators who want to bring the institution along the journey you have been on?
Student digital leaders, they're probably in your classrooms and institutions now, and to give them work experience, a free lunch, they can help you on inset days, training days, and they can grow into being members of your team, to leverage the talent that's already in your institutions, and to listen to them and their perspective will give you insights that will transcend your own. So student digital leaders is the biggest bit of advice I've got.
Fantastic.
That's great. I'd say be open-minded. As I said, be open-minded in your approaches to not just the technology, but its use. Give staff time, support, and be patient with them. But you'll also probably find that there are, fantastic advocates, technologists within your organization, within your college or university already. I'd suggest finding them, nurturing them, and giving them the opportunities to share what they've been doing and role modeling what they're doing for others.
That's absolutely brilliant. Be open-minded, engage with your students, and obviously engage with educators as well. That seems like a very, very powerful conclusion. Thanks a lot for your time, Richard and Scott. Thanks for everyone who showed up today. The recording will be available on YouTube soon. You will all receive an email. It's been fantastic. And yeah, thanks. Have a wonderful rest of your evening. And speak soon.
That's great. Thanks, everyone.
Yes. Bye.
Thank you. See you later.
Bye.